All right, welcome back, everyone. Today, we're doing another deep dive with the Enneagram.
That's right.
And we're going to kind of dust it off a bit.
Yeah.
Assuming most of you listening already get the basics,
Right.
9 types, all that good stuff. But today, we're going deeper.
Deeper.
Using the life and career of Olivia Newton-John to really unpack one specific type.
Okay.
The type 3, the achiever. And we'll zero in on the sexual subtype.
Right. Always a fun one.
Always interesting. Before we jump in, though,
Yeah.
I do want to say, we're not trying to put Olivia Newton-John in a box here.
Absolutely not. No.
This is about using her as an example, right? To understand this Enneagram combo.
Exactly. Think of it as like building on what you already know about the Enneagram.
Okay, so for anyone who needs a quick refresher,
Sure.
what makes a type 3 an achiever pick?
Yeah.
What are their motivations?
Well, at their core, they're really driven by this like deep fear of worthlessness.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They're terrified of being unlovable for who they are, not what they achieve.
And that fear, that's what drives them. To succeed, to be recognized, admired. It's all about proving their worth.
So it's not just about like, I want to be successful. It's I need to be successful.
Exactly, to prove something. To themselves, even.
And we're layering on the sexual subtype today. How does that change things?
That's where things get interesting. That sexual subtype, it takes that fear and desire and, well, intensifies it in a very specific way.
Okay.
It's not just success in any field now. It's about achieving success by being captivating, being desirable. They want to be the most attractive person in the room. That's how they measure worth.
So it's almost like success in the realm of attraction.
Precisely. It's an energy, a drive to captivate, draw people in. Doesn't always have to be overtly sexy either.
Yeah.
It can be charm, charisma, having that it factor.
And that makes me think of Olivia Newton-John, specifically her transformation in Greece. It wasn't just Sandy becoming, like, cooler.
Yeah.
It was about her becoming undeniably attractive.
Right. Was that a conscious choice tied to this subtype, do you think?
It's an interesting question. Tough to say definitively, of course, what was going on for her internally. But looking at that Greece transformation through this lens, it becomes pretty symbolic, like a visual representation of that core drive for the 3 sexual. They mold themselves into what others find irresistible to quiet that fear of not being enough.
And her music career, especially that physical era,
Yeah.
that leaned hard into sex appeal. Was that calculated? Or just an authentic expression of her type?
It's hard to say for sure. But from what I've read, Olivia was very, very deliberate about her image, how she presented herself to the world. She understood the power of being attractive, and she used it.
Whether it was conscious or not.
Right. But it's a great example of how this subtype can show up.
Even beyond the music, she was known for always being so put together. Perfect.
Yes. That's so key for this subtype, that need to control how they're seen, projecting flawlessness, like they're curating their own highlight reel.
Makes you wonder what's going on beneath the surface, though. Is it all a mask for deeper insecurities?
That's a really, really important insight. Because often, that confidence, that perfection, it's a defense mechanism, protecting themselves from feeling unworthy. It's a wall,
So counterintuitive. You'd think someone so outwardly successful and attractive wouldn't struggle with that.
But that's the thing, isn't it? That's what makes the Enneagram so fascinating. It helps us see beyond the surface.
So what looks like effortless confidence and charm could be a very carefully constructed persona to ward off that deep fear of worthlessness.
Exactly. Powerful stuff when you think about it, both for the 3s themselves and the people in their lives.
We're getting a much more nuanced picture here. It's not just about being sexy. There's so much more to it.
Absolutely. And as we dive further into Olivia Newton-John's life, I think we'll see even more of those layers unfold. Before we get too far into the type 3 sexual, I want to just kind of throw this out to the listeners. When you think about people who just like radiate charisma, that magnetic pull, have you ever noticed that in someone? What is it about their energy that just draws you in? Does it feel effortless or like carefully crafted?
It's a great question. It really does apply to everyday life. We always talk about celebrities, but these patterns are everywhere. But getting back to Olivia Newton-John, we've been focusing on like her career choices and that really put together image.
Yeah.
But she was also a dedicated activist and a mother, of course. How does that fit into this type 3 sexual picture? Seems almost like a contrast, right?
It is interesting, isn't it? Because it shows another layer of this subtype. You know, that core drive to be seen as worthy, as valuable. It can come out in lots of ways. Career success, sure, but also philanthropy, being a perfect parent. The arena might change, but the underlying motivation, that stays the same. It's about getting validation, admiration.
So even in those acts that seem selfless, like activism or motherhood, there's a part of them that's still seeking that recognition.
It's not necessarily conscious, but if we go back to that core fear, the terror of being seen as unworthy, we can see how even positive actions can be tied to that need. It doesn't mean they're not genuine, but there's often this layer of, well, image management, wanting to be seen as the perfect activist, the ideal mom.
So it's not just about being desirable in, like, a romantic sense.
No, it's bigger than that.
It's about being desirable in every role you play.
Exactly. The most captivating, the most admirable, the most worthy in every context. And that can be so draining for the 3A and D, for everyone around them.
It sounds exhausting, like always striving for perfection, never feeling quite good enough.
That's exactly it. And that's why it's so crucial for type 3 sexuals to understand their patterns, find healthier ways to deal with that fear.
Okay, because it sounds like a bit of a trap.
It can be, because the truth is no amount of outside validation is going to truly fix it.
So how do they break free? How do they learn to validate themselves instead of always needing it from the outside?
That's the big question, right? And it's something we'll dig into more in the next part. But here's a little hint. It starts with understanding the difference between genuine self-worth and that fleeting validation you get from, external stuff.
Okay, interesting. I'm definitely curious to hear more about that. But before we move on, I wanted to touch on Olivia Newton-John's career again. We talked Greece, physical. But are there other examples of her using that image, that desirability to succeed?
Oh, absolutely. There are a few things that really stand out in what I've read. For example, her music videos, especially in the early 80s, they really showcased her beauty, her charisma.
Yeah.
It was a deliberate choice, And it totally lines up with how a 3-sexual might operate, using their allure to get ahead.
It's like they know how to play the game. And they know how to win.
That's a great way to put it, because it really highlights that duality, They can be so strategic, so savvy, using their charm to their advantage. But underneath it all, there's that fear, that terror of failure, of not being perfect.
So it's this constant balancing act.
Exactly. Between ambition and insecurity. And finding that balance, that's where the growth is.
This has been so insightful. We've really unpacked a lot about the type 3 sexual. But I'm really eager to get into that shift, from needing external validation to finding it within. How do they break free from that trap? Okay, so we've really gotten into the nitty-gritty of the type 3 sexual, their fears, their motivations.
Right.
But now I want to kind of shift gears. We've talked about the pitfalls, that constant need for validation.
Yeah.
So what does healthy growth look like for this subtype? When they start to find that balance, what does that look like?
Well, I think the first step is really understanding the root of their drive, recognizing that it's often coming from this place of fear, that fear of not being seen as worthy.
Yeah.
So all that striving for success, for desirability, it's often a way to outrun that fear.
So instead of outrunning it, they need to turn and face it.
Exactly. That's when the real work can begin. It's about, challenging those deep beliefs about themselves.
Okay.
Questioning that whole idea that their worth is tied to achievements or, how attractive they are.
But that's got to be tough, right? For a type that's so externally focused.
Yeah.
How do they even start doing that?
It's definitely not easy. But one of the most powerful things for a type 3 sexual, I think, is self-compassion.
Self-compassion.
Yeah. Learning to be kind to themselves, acknowledging those imperfections without judgment. Because that's where true self-acceptance starts.
Wow.
Embracing the whole package, flaws and all.
That's a big one. But it seems like almost the opposite of what a 3 sexual is all about. Aren't they all about striving for perfection, that flawless image?
On the surface, yeah, absolutely. But that's what makes this shift so huge. When they can start to let go of that pressure to be perfect, to just relax into who they truly are, that's when their real charisma comes out.
So it's not about giving up on success or attraction.
Right.
It's finding a more genuine way to express it.
Exactly. When they're operating from a place of genuine self-worth, the need for validation, it lessens. They don't need to prove themselves anymore. And that inner confidence, that's what's really magnetic. It's they're finally free to just be themselves.
It's instead of, look at me, I'm amazing, it's, I'm good with who I am. And that's enough.
Perfect. That's a great way to put it. because that shift, it changes their energy. It's not about seeking attention anymore. It's just being.
And that's what people are drawn to.
Ironically, yes. That's often when they get the most genuine admiration, respect.
Makes me think of Olivia Newton-John, actually. Later in her career, she seemed to move away from that, overtly sexy image. Focus more on activism, family. Do you think that reflects this growth for a 3E sexual?
It's definitely possible. Hard to say for sure based on what I've read, but it's interesting to think about that shift in focus, and it seemed like she found a lot of fulfillment in those things.
Yeah, like she was channeling that 3 drive into something more, I don't know, meaningful.
Yeah. And that's a key part of it, I think, finding that balance between ambition and purpose. Using their talents, their charisma to make a difference, not just to gain something for themselves.
So it's not about DNYing the ambition. It's about, aiming at something different.
Exactly. And that's what the Enneagram's all about, isn't it? It's not about changing who you are. It's about understanding yourself, so you can make conscious choices, live a more fulfilling life.
This deep dive has been fascinating. I feel like we've learned so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add for our listeners before we wrap things up?
Well, I think the big takeaway is that the Enneagram, it's really a journey of self-discovery. It's about understanding ourselves and the people around us better. And for the 3 sexual, it's about recognizing that worthiness, it doesn't come from outside achievements. It comes from within. And that's a powerful thing to embrace.
So to all the type 3 sexuals out there, remember to be kind to yourselves. Embrace those imperfections. Let your true selves shine, because that's where your real magnetism lies.
Beautifully said. And to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
That's right. And until next time, may you all find the courage to be your true selves and live a life that's both meaningful and magnetic.